In 1974, Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson designed and released the first edition of Dungeons & Dragons, a tabletop role-playing game featuring, well, Dungeons & Dragons, obviously, but also other fantasy creatures like elves, dwarves, hobbits until Tolkien's lawyers forced him to change them to halflings, and many more. The game was a major hit back then, even if it did have issues involving accusation of sadism. But with its overly complicated system and the general dislike of nerd culture, it wasn't selling in large numbers. Eventually, revisions were done, with the most notable being Advanced D&D in 1977, 3.5 in 2003, and the current 5th edition released in 2014. Nowadays, with the erosion of nerd culture stigma, plus 5th edition being the most accessible Dungeons & Dragons to date, and Roll20 and Fantasy Grounds allowing you to play Dungeons & Dragons virtually, the franchise has gone from strength to strength with increased use. Probably helped out a little bit by a small thing that happened in 2020. To the point where the most profitable Twitch channel is Critical Role, a show in which
a bunch of us nerdy-ass voice actors sit around and play Dungeons & Dragons.
And it doesn't just stop there. Staying with Critical Role for a second, they're creating an animated series, video game, and movie based on their Dungeons & Dragons world. Larian Studios, creators of the Divinity series, is making a Baldur's Gate 3. Netflix's Stranger Things is based around the game Dungeons & Dragons. It has never been more popular. But did you know that there was actually tons of Dungeons & Dragons games that were released before this resurgence? Most might not realize it, but there's been a lot of D&D games that came out in the early 90s and early 2000s. It's just that a majority of them didn't have the name Dungeons & Dragons in front of it, for whatever reason. The most notable ones being the aforementioned Baldur's Gate, Planescape, Icewind Dale, and Neverwinter Nights. But despite those main ones, a few games did squeeze out from the pile of Neverwinter Night expansions, to either live or die. One of these was Forgotten Realms Demon Souls, one of the only D&D games that actually mentions the realm that the games are based in, unlike 3/4 of the other D&D games. Developed by Stormfront Studios, who made the original Neverwinter Nights, and written by R.A. Salvatore, who wrote the novels that popularized the Forgotten Realms, Demonstones was released in September of 2004, with an Xbox and PC release sometime after. It garnered some favorable reviews, and even got nominated for several BAFTAs. But despite this, from what I've tried to dig up, it sold horrendously, not even topping 100k sales. Not to mention, this was during the age of Neverwinter Nights, with 3 modules released literally 2 months after Demonstone. And so, Stormfront closed down in 2008, and Demonstone faded into obscurity. Was that it then? Was it a mixture of lack of advertisement and the fact that everyone was all about Neverwinter Nights and they released a bunch of expansions that doomed this game? Or was it something else? Let's go find out. So our story begins with some backstory narrated by Patrick Stewart regarding Gaul, the Slod Leader, and Soraka, General of the Githyanki. What are you looking at me for? They don't explain it, I'm not going to either. In their attempt to take over the realm. But the only thing stopping them from taking it over is each other. But in a bid to stop them, a powerful wizard called Kelvin seals them both within a demon stone to prevent their return. And it then concludes with Kelvin saying that they've returned.
But now you bring me word they've broken free, and villagers lay ruined in their wake. They must be stopped, if we are not too late.
Place your bets on how long it's going to be before we cause that. So we meet Geralt from The Witcher, pre-Witcher transformation, as he's taking a leisurely stroll through the forest. However, upon hearing something dangerous nearby, he readies his weapon in case of... Wow. That escalated quickly. How the hell did we go from a walk in the forest to a dragon attack in the midst of a battle between 2 orcs? In addition, how did he hear these orcs, but not the dragon making its way to the sound of battle, or the battle himself? Does he have selective hearing or anything? No, but he does have a proper name. This is Rannick, voiced by Daniel Riordan, who, for you Skyrim fans, is Alduin. As he proceeds to, and we're right into it. No tutorial or hint or, well, anything. Ah, yes, I see, we're going the Spartan way of video games. So right off the bat, I need to say a real big issue. The swordplay is weird. The hits like impact, they sort of flail about all over the place, and the only good way to lock on is when you use a ranged weapon. This seems awfully familiar to me. At least you have an omnidirectional block, so that's good? And not to mention the controls are a bit weird. The A button's your basic attack, whereas B is another attack, but is not a combo attack, or at least not yet. X is this really weird downward stab that only really gets you hits until later when you find out it's actually an skill attack if things are knocked down. And the Y button, yeah, I'll explain later. Also, pauses are free for some reason. Oh, hey, look at that, I got some skills. Which are in the form of keyboard and mouse. Yeah, I'm using a controller. That doesn't help me at all. I don't get it. We had controllers for PC back then. I think. Not to mention the camera control, or lack thereof. It's one of those fixed camera angle games, which by itself isn't that bad, but the enemies coming from all over makes it really difficult to react when they're just barreling in through the side, especially when you're near the side. Eventually, Rannick frees a half-drow, half-wood elf rogue. Note to self, using my own campaign. Named Jai, voiced by Vanessa Marshall. Hey, do you remember Olga from Metal Gear Solid 2? Yes, really. As a rogue, she's able to sneak through and assassinate people in the... honestly, it's a pretty cool one. It looks really cool. I like it. It kind of reminds me of playing Sangreal in Summoner 2, where you can use stealth to backstab in a hack and slash. I need to stop referencing obscure games, because no one's going to get it. It's honestly a lot of fun. And busted. As long as you zip in and out of shadows, you can insta-kill the enemies without any retaliation. Ah yes, even in video games, rogues are bullshit. So after a real short instance, no seriously, it's like half the time of Rannick, our third hero appears out of nowhere. Literally, he walks through a portal. This is Ilias, voiced by Christopher Nielsley, who I had a hard time finding other video game things he's voiced in. From Twisted Metal 2 World Tour. What do you want from me? He's a sorcerer that can cast Magic Missile without needing to worry about mana or spell slots. So you know what that means. Pew, 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 pew. Eventually, the party all meet up and get driven into the mine by the Red Dragon, completing the level. And it's here we get to upgrade our gear, and this looks like... okay, yeah, I'm not going to make this a joke. This is essentially just a D&D reskin of the Lord of the Rings The Two Towers video game, which Stormfront themselves made. Now, keep in mind that having a game be very similar to a previous game a company's done doesn't automatically make it a bad thing. Hell, it's how most sequels come about. But it's about the improvements that you make that's going to dictate if it's going to actually be, well, an improvement over any other game. So, what kind of improvements does Demonstone improve on? Well, I mean, you can freely switch between your characters. That's a genuine improvement. Though, honestly, the characters style themselves sort of end up running into a small problem that Two Towers also had, without the bonus of Two Towers having contained characters from a very popular film and book series. You have the choice of the Sorcerer, who can spam spells, buff allies, or debuff enemies. The Rogue, who can insta-kill most mooks with the use of a somewhat janky stealth, or the Fighter. He hits things. Don't get me wrong, Two Towers had this issue as well, especially with several characters being mostly copy and paste of each other, but it's characters who have shown themselves in the books and films to be complete badasses. Gimli, Aragorn, Legolas, Gandalf, even Frodo, even goddamn Frodo. But here, you don't have that. As far as I'm aware, these characters don't show up in the books, and if they do, they're not substantial characters. But even then, which ones are you going to recognize? The books from an at-the-time niche tabletop game? Or the books whose impact on the world of fantasy literature is felt to this day, and was one of the main sources of inspiration that this tabletop game took inspiration from, so this game is technically inspired by these books as well. Anyway, we get to Chapter 2 where all the characters are together, and we get a small bit of backstory for the characters. A small bit.
I'm half drow.
The Drow, a race of murderers and thieves.
Well, you won't see me playing hero. And I don't know why you feel the need.
I'm from a town called Nesme.
Of course.
It was overrun by trolls.
I was in that fight, but I was knocked out early. When I awoke, almost everyone I knew had been killed.
Explains the death wish.
Now it gives me a tutorial. Yeah, okay. I spent the last 10 minutes flailing blindly and learning how to play the game by myself, but it's chapter 2 where he decided, you know what? Here, let me help you out with this one. It's like playing Dark Souls, but the messages only show after you beat the first boss.
My name's Rannick.
Also, we have a super attack now, and it's stupid how you use it. You press the back button. You press the back button. Look, I don't know if this is just because of the PC port or something, but I don't really know why the backbone is there. Especially when L2 is very rarely used, if at all. In fact, maybe that's for something else which I never got to work properly because PC port's probably busted. But it's just, why back of all things? I don't know, but eventually we make our way through and reach a part where Zhai has to break the party out, which is where we see her in her OP glory. Just running around into stealth, assassinating somebody, and then going back into stealth. Rinse, repeat, and because you get more XP doing it, you also level up faster. We then get a boss that goes on for far too long, and get our unique items. That's where the Y button comes in, by the way. Ilias gets 4 speeds, Rennick gets Gauntlets of Ogre Power, and Zhai gets a Ring of Jumping. Ilias and Ranix's are basically the exact same thing, just Ilias can trigger his whenever he wants. So blah blah blah, we try out our new gear, and we end up freeing the big bads. For those who have been keeping track, that took us till level 2 to fuck up. Gaul is voiced by the late Michael Clark Duncan, who played Kingpin in Daredevil, and Soraka is voiced by Betty Jean Ward, who voices, and I'm not kidding on this one, at one point voiced both Velma Dinkley and Betty Rubble in the 2000s. Voice acting is weird. We move on to protect our Wood Elf village from these two, and yeah, it's more of the same. Go to this area, kill the guys, repeat. The problem is as well with this is that it implies that you're trying to save as many elves as possible, but there's an unlimited number of elves. There's no failure state on that one. The only failure state is if you run out of health. Kind of, sort of, ruins a lot of the feel of urgency. I will say it's a pretty cool set piece, just like the first level was, especially when Gaul and Soraka are fighting. Though I will admit, when they move to the foreground, it makes it really difficult to focus on your own fights, and that's really annoying. But finally, we get a chance to breathe and speak with Kelvin Blacksath, the wizard who'd sealed Gaul and Soraka all those years ago, voiced by Patrick Stewart. Do I even need to say what he's been in? They discuss how to get a new Demonstone and best to proceed. Okay, never mind. Hold on. You're telling me that a wizard, powerful enough to seal 2 realm-destroying leaders in a Demonstone and make it so that no one else can get access to it, doesn't have the ability to put up wards? You're an archmage. You're meant to be good at this. No, in fact, he has traps and very inefficient mechanical guardians -1. But arcane wards, or even one swarm of incoming intruders? Nope.
Justice never fades. You cannot win.
And now he's dead. Patrick Stewart, voicing short-lived characters since 2004. So after another way too long sequence, we head to the Yuan-Ti camp, and, you know, it's weird. Dungeons & Dragons, the party normally has time to relax, do stuff, converse, roleplay, but here it's set piece after set piece. It worked in the Lord of the Rings game because there were just so many instances of this. The Mines of Moria, the Battle in the Forest, Helm's Deep, Minas Tirith. But here it's like we're dealing with a dungeon master that hates role-playing, which is pretty bad given Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game. And there's a reason for that. There's a very good reason for that. Throughout the levels, there are various books which you can acquire. These books usually contain concept art or a cutscene of the party resting and talking about their backstory. You have to find their backstory through secrets. It is not there in the open, where it should be. I want to like these characters. I always want to know more about characters when I play video games. But this is just deliberately hiding it for no discernible reason outside of, we need collectibles. We need unlockables. But it's not right to take out your character's backstory and hide them. Because that just means I'm not going to care about them no matter what happens to them. It's one thing for them to be, like, quiet about their backstory. It's another thing to not let us players know about it without, again, finding secrets. It's just so arse backwards. Yeah, so I might be wrong on this one. Going through getting some of the recording stuff, I found out that if you go back to the other levels, you actually have the options of doing stuff. I may be confusing the books for the concept art, but it still stands by that it's stupid that you kinda, sort of... Well, I didn't know about it until I went back onto it, so how are you meant to know going through it normally? So, still stupid. Anyway, so we're fighting Yonte now, the Bane of Mages. Except in this game. And at this point, a very clear strategy began to emerge. If there's a whole bunch of shadows, then use Zhai and insta-kill all the enemies. Otherwise, pick Ilias. The only time you would ever use Rannick is when you either have no choice, or there's no shadows and Ilias is unavailable. In short, Rannick's a third wheel. Sure, he hits the hardest and he's the tankiest, but it doesn't really matter when you eventually get AoE attacks and you have someone with an insta-kill sneak attack. Man, even in video games, fighters get shafted. Eventually the level ends with a long boat ride and a pitiful boss fight. I'm starting to see a pattern here. This is essentially what a majority of the game is. You fight enemies till you can proceed, fight a boss far longer than you should, repeat. Very little lore, very little conversation in a D&D party, almost like Timmy's mom's coming to pick him up at 8, so you gotta wrap up the session in the next 10 minutes. It just seems like a step backwards. So, after finding a boss in which Rannick is actually useful and collecting the Demonstone, we get something different, if you've never played the Helm's Deep level in Two Towers. It's a holdout level. This time made it by a drow called Demonstone, the protagonist of all of R.A. Salvatore's books. So what, he's inserting his own scene into this now? Voiced by Robin Atkin Downes. Pick one! And you know, this level, I think, is probably the best level in the game. It's all one area where you can mostly freely roam about in. It's difficult, you have a lot of allies to help you out in the fight. It keeps true to the lore of D&D trolls where you need fire to kill them. And you can actually play as Dritz in this level. And if you don't want to, don't worry, the game will force you to unlock out Ilias. To be fair though, Dritz is kind of a badass. He's fast, he has an infinite crossbow, he's just cool. Drows are cool, man, I don't know what to say about it. Following a surprisingly quick and easy boss fight, we proceed to the Underdark. Without Dritz. Did you know that the bottom arrow is never used at all in this game? Why couldn't you have given us Dritz and just assigned him to that one? Hell, why couldn't, during the Mithril Hall defense thing, he was assigned to that as well so we could keep using Ilias? What the hell, game? I'm just saying, we could have had Dritz join us. I mean, not only does he seem like a cool, badass character, he's voiced by Robin Atkin Downes, one of my favourite voice actors. He's also the thing that got the Forgotten Realms popular because he's the protagonist of Salvatore's books, and he was the catalyst that pushed Drow away from the D&D lore of being always evil stereotypes. Wouldn't it be cool for him to help out and make use of his magic panther familiar that he's got? I know I'm nitpicking in regards to this, but the thing is that this is just the Lord of the Rings of Two Towers with a D&D paint job. So, naturally, I'm going to compare it to that game, since that's essentially what it is. And the thing is in the Two Towers, you could play as characters that weren't actually in the area where the levels are. Hell, you could play as a Isildur if you wanted to, and by the time Fellowship of the Ring came out, he was long dead. That's the thing about this. It's just one big step backwards for no discernible reason whatsoever. I am baffled by how much of a step backwards this has become. Not to mention the speed of the plot at this point. Now we're in the Underdark, going to the final showdown of the BBEGs, and it was about 10 minutes ago I was talking about the Wood Elves. That's the big issue with the story. It's breakneck speed. Any conversation about the character's past or ideal or anything about the lore is condensed to less than a minute each time. Sure, they talk about their backstory, but only for a few seconds. And if you want to find the rest of it, well, you gotta find some unlockables to find out. So, after sneaking and attacking our way through the Underdark, we get to the portal that's being used by Soreka, and shortly after, Gaul shows up along with his slot. Okay, another thing. This entire time, Gaul's been saying how he needs a portal to bring forth his army. But I don't know. Judging by these cutscenes, he's having a pretty easy time bringing them through. Also, you have a red dragon on your side. For the uninitiative, red dragons are one of the most feared dragons in Dungeons & Dragons. They're the most powerful, they're the most ruthless, they live for conquest, kingdoms fear red dragons. So why do you need a portal when you have a red dragon at your side? Just take what you've got and just have the red dragon do most of the work. Say that, you'll share the kingdom, and then, I don't know, if you're powerful enough to get a red dragon to swallow, if you're surely strong enough to kill it. So the party go through the portal, I guess. Ilias has plane shift. And after a long fight, we see Soreka bited by the red dragon. Rannick gets a sword, and what follows is easily the most annoying part in the entire game. This corridor. It's just one long corridor with a flood of enemies every few inches, and you need to kill them all in order to proceed. It's tedious, it's annoying, and it shows that in a contest between Ilias and Xion, who the most busted is, it's Ilias. Also, while my attempts with this, music stopped playing, and so I was fighting the entire time in silence. Like a real D&D game would be. So hey, we've gone through plenty of dungeons already. How about we fight some dragons? Like this one right here. Why do I even bother? This really doesn't do red dragons justice. Again, they're one of the most feared, and yet this. I mean, I guess it's got a cool way of just ending it, rather than just outright killing it. You do have to use the power of teamwork to finish off, but it's really janky, and there's no real indication on what best to do.
Sorcerer, put him in a trance!
Trance. Okay. I have a sleep spell. What was it? I just press A.
Shy! Force his neck down!
Jump! Okay! Yeah, this is easy. I got a jump ring. It's clearly Y. It's clearly... Oh. It's A again.
Attack when his head is down!
At least that one made sense. And so we head to the final level, the Lord of Chaos. 10 levels, people! 10 levels! And if you're thinking that it'll just be a big long fight against you and Gaul, well, you're clearly giving this game far too much credit. It's a huge group of enemies, so you know what that means. Bam Jai to assassinate things, snipe archers with Ilias, and maybe just kill because you've got Meteor Swarm now. And you go into the final battle with Gaul, who explains that all our misfortune was caused by him. Oh no! Yeah, it doesn't really hit so much given that we don't know much about them. Again, the fact that most of their story stuff is hidden behind unlockables means we don't know much about them. So here it's just kind of like, oh well, that sucks, I guess. So how does the final showdown hold up? This tyrannical monster from another plane of existence versus a sorcerer a half-drow, and the third wheel. Will all three once again need their strength to take him down, just like their battle with the Red Dragon? The BBEG, ladies and gentlemen. Honestly, this is just kind of sad. You'd expect this really epic showdown when really it's just you block, you just spam meteors, you block some more, and oh, look at that, you've won. Also, I just want to point out that there was no music here, and I think Gaul broke because his run cycle was replaced by a T-pose. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but it's funny if I think if that's actually a thing. So it was actually a thing. And so, with Gaul defeated, we return back to the Wood Elf town, where it turns out Kelvin is alive!
Kelvin, you're alive.
Somehow! You know, wizards, they're known for their tankiness. You know, they can survive, you know, this and this. And especially this. Yeah, you know, wizards, they're basically tanks. They're basically tanks. Yep. Despite what must have been only a day since we killed Gaul, the king of the land knows this, and gives the three of them their own land to take, with a threat that the Githyanki may return. And that is where the story ends.
Let them try.
If the king knew that this was happening in his realm, why the fuck did he do nothing? Demon's Souls isn't a great game. It also isn't a good game. It kind of sits between that unfortunate position of okay and poor. Sure, visually and music-wise, it's fine. The vocal performances are good, given the actors that they have. And the AI is actually pretty smart. At least smart enough to grab health when they're low and to use their own abilities. But the story, while decently written, is rushed to hell. The pacing is breakneck, and the gameplay, it basically just boils down to using the overpowered mechanics of two of your party members. On top of that, including the main character of the Forgotten Realms books, and don't even make him an unlockable. I can kind of see now why this game didn't do so good, both in terms of sales and notoriety, being a massive step back from Stormfront's previous game, and honestly it makes me sad. I'd like there to be more real-time D&D stuff, you know, not things like Baldur's Gate, for example. Or, I don't know, I'd at least like to know what happened to those three afterwards. I don't know if it's in the books because I haven't read any of them, but it just seems really weird that they give this land, they set it up for a sequel, and they don't make a mention of it ever again. The game is available on GOG, so if you want it, then go ahead and play it there, but if you ask me, it's rolled real low in its performance check. Hey guys, it's Stick here. I still don't know what the hell I'm doing with all this stuff, so thank you all for watching me ramble about another obscure game. I don't know why it's like, obscure game. I'm already thinking of doing another obscure game. Maybe that's just going to be my shtick if I go into reviews and stuff. But either way, let me know what you think in the comments below. As I say, I hope you enjoyed it, and who knows, maybe I'll get beyond doing just one video, one review upload, like, a year. Maybe. Again, I have no clue what the hell I'm doing. Still. Bye-bye!